Hi, this is Natalie Lander, voice of Kinsey, Tara Branford, Stargirl, and many others. You are listening to a W2Mnet podcast. You can visit W2Mnet.com for other podcasts about entertainment, video games, sports, and wrestling.
The Kickoff. What's your fantasy?
And good evening, and welcome to the second episode of the Kickoff Presents What's Your Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host. I am the Unprofessional Chairman here at the W2M Network. My name is Jason Teasley. Along for this chaotic ride for the second week in a row, I have the Black Plague, Erik Watkins.
I'm still wondering, does this mean we got to get a third show for me to work my nickname that I introduced on the kickoff last week?
No,
yes.
You just use that. Yeah. You can just use that on the kickoff.
No, he can use that when Black Irish launches, is what he can do.
Fair.
And the other voice you hear is our voice of reason here at the W2N Network, and that's Harry Broadhurst.
Good evening, afternoon, whenever you happen to... Oh, wait, that's the wrong show for that. Real quick, before we get started on the show, tonight's episode is dedicated to Angela Puglisi. Our thoughts are with you, Nanny. Get well soon.
Liz and your mom, you are in our thoughts and prayers. So, week 2 in fantasy football world had a lot of downs, quite a few ups, but definitely a lot of downs. And that leads us right into the perfect segment to kick off the show. That's New Lineup Who Dis, where we discuss our waiver wire finds. Guys, the waiver wire in all of my leagues are essentially blowing up because who would have known that week 2 would have resulted in multiple injuries and devastating teams. So, who are you guys looking to add on the waiver wire with the likes of, Morissette, McCaffrey? Who else went down this week? Good Lord. Saquon. I mean,
kind of hard to forget him.
There's a plethora of players that went down. Michael Thomas is out for a couple of weeks. There's a lot of holes being plugged. So who are you guys targeting on the waiver wire this week with all these injuries and stuff to help your fantasy leagues?
Who's starting?
Whoever wants to jump in.
I'll go ahead and go first here since I went first on last week's episode. We'll keep some uniformity from that. I'm looking at the running back situation in San Francisco here, and I'm looking at Tevin Coleman being out. I'm looking at Raheem Mostert being out, and I'm looking at Jerick McKinnon, who was supposed to be the starter last year before he had his own injury issues. The coaching staff is really high on McKinnon, and it's an offense that definitely favors the run as well. So I'm thinking that Jerick McKinnon's probably going to be somebody that's going to get, if he can stay healthy now, somebody that's going to get 15 to 20 carries, and somebody that will plug in nicely as a low-end running back 1 for your fantasy team.
Yeah, I mean, he's got and we forgot to even mention the fact that Jimmy G's also out. With Jimmy G being hurt, that offense is going to rely heavy on the run. So McKinnon is a great pickup. I agree with you there, Harry. Erik, who are you targeting, trying to pick up anybody specific that you're looking to target on the waiver wires that, that people may want to look at adding?
Now, luckily, in one of my deeper leagues, I already have him as my quarterback, so I'm fortunate. But if you don't, especially if you were hit by the likes of the Jimmy G injury, I would go ahead and take a flyer on Gardner Minshew. Now, yes, the interception last week at the end of the game against Tennessee, it stings a little bit. But overall, you're talking about over 500 yards, 6 touchdown passes, and against a decent but still considerably soft Miami defense on a short week, he's a guy that I wouldn't necessarily say stream him, but have him for the next couple of weeks or if you've got a good bench spot. Also, like Jerick McKinnon, very good value if you're doing daily fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, Minshew is a solid, quarterback to stash. With you never know who's going to go down. I mean, Drew Lock proved that. Excuse me. So as did Jimmy G. So I mean, yeah, I definitely look and see if Minshew's out there. Maybe grab him and stash him on your bench.
You mentioned that Drew Lock injury. Let's give a quick notification here to Jeff Driscoll, who performed admirably in Drew Lock's absence, almost bringing the Broncos back to a victory over Pittsburgh in the second half.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's a serviceable position. I know Elway is looking to bring somebody in. They haven't really floated any names out there that I know of yet. The most notable, the rumors I heard most recently is, some rumblings of a Blake Bortles sighting maybe happening in Denver. Nothing confirmed, but, I think it's a possibility that they sign somebody like Bortles to come in and just, be a Band-Aid on the situation. I know Erik has a lot of familiarity with Bortles. So, maybe, I mean, I don't see him as a long-term solution, but as a Band-Aid to fill in while Lock's gone. Now, I have 3 people that I'm targeting, and it's a good plethora here. 2 running backs and a tight end actually is who I'm going to be targeting. First up is the recently signed to my New York Giants due to the Saquon injury, and that's Devontae Freeman, who just signed a 1-year, $3 million contract in New York to go up there and try to help salvage a season. I don't know if it's going to happen, but, I think he's a serviceable back that can step into a role that can contribute and be a stop aid, to keep the Giants from being the worst team in the league. Also, with the Christian McCaffrey injury that's putting him out 4 to 6 weeks, look to target Mike Davis, who stepped in toward the end of the game once McCaffrey went down with his ankle injury. And see, just like I said, as a quick fix. But I want to talk about the outstanding tight end that emerged that has basically came out of nowhere. And we seen him on Thursday Night Football last week. And that's Drew Sample for Cincinnati, who has a really good connection with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow hit him quite a few times. It's like, anything underneath Sample was grabbing, and they connected quite a few times going downfield. So if you're looking for a dynasty player or just somebody a tight end that you can stash, in an emergency situation, I mean, Drew Sample is a serviceable tight end to throw in there.
There's another reason to take Sample as well, now that you mentioned him. Let's not forget that Cincinnati just lost C.J. Uzomah to the season to a torn Achilles tendon as well. Their starting tight end. Yeah,
and I mean, like I said, he's serviceable. A lot of people was talking about him after that Thursday night game. So definitely somebody that, you could stream and look at. So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is our hype train segment, which is, where we talk about the players that did not live up to expectations. So I'm going to kick this off with you, Harry. Who's on your hype train this week?
I'm going to pick an entire freaking defense for this. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings defense and special teams, as they have been absolutely non-existent in the first 2 weeks of the season. First, getting 43 run up on them by Green Bay, and then having the ageless wonder 2.0, Phillip Rivers, take them for 28 and a 28-11 loss to the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think that hype train is in full effect. Now, Eric, do you got anybody that you're bringing aboard the hype train?
Honestly, I'll admit his place is a little bit tenuous, but hear me out on this one. We knew that Carolina was mostly going to run their offense around Run CMC. That was no doubt. However, even in his absence, and especially with the performance in Week 1, you expected a level of respectability in Week 2. So I am bringing aboard the hype train, Teddy Bridgewater. For someone who, again, I understand a more short-term solution than long-term solution, looking back at what he was able to do for Minnesota when healthy. Look at what he was able to do when Drew Brees was hurt for New Orleans last season. You expect something better from him than just flat out laying an egg against Tampa Bay. It's like, how bad off is Carolina really going to be moving forward if this is what you're going to get under center?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, I mean, Bridgewater has had a lot of hype built up for him, and that is definitely someone, that can definitely be all in. Now, this one may hurt some people. I just wanted to look at a stat line. It's going to hurt somebody on this listening on this podcast tremendously. That isn't named Jason. My hype train has let me down 2 weeks in a row, and that's Devin Singletary. I mean, I had a lot of faith in him, but I mean, he's just making pedestrian numbers now. I mean, he rushed Sunday for 56 yards, which was, I mean, it was almost a dead even split between him and rookie Zach Moss, and it's getting scary. I mean, Allen is playing lights out. I mean, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen is playing lights out. He is connected with Diggs and has a really good repertoire there, but their run game has went absolutely nowhere. And
I think that's the problem in Buffalo right now for fantasy football owners, is the fact that Buffalo wide receiving core and Josh Allen have such great communication going right now that the running game has become almost secondary up in Buffalo.
Yeah, but I mean, you still gotta have a solid running game so your passing game can be opened up. But of course, they did play the Dolphins,
and the Jets.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not throwing anybody off the train yet, or throwing anybody up under the bus, but I do think that people need to lower their expectations on Devin Singletary. At least pump the brakes right now, especially me, because I think I have him in just about every league except for my dynasty leagues right now. I was all over the Singletary hype train. Now, moving on.
But real quick though, Jason, it's okay. Remember, you're talking with someone who dropped Leonard Fournette, so.
Well,
hey, Eric, shut the fuck up. Continue, Jason.
Well, we may talk about that a little later. So
we are.
So now we're going to move on to our balling, our straight up ballers, and there's two names that instantly, well, actually about three names instantly leap off the page in my mind.
Are we doing this the same way we did last week? Quarterback, running back, wide receiver?
Yes, we're going to go each position. So, Harry, what quarterback did you have that was? I know who it is. I know your wide receiver and your quarterback.
Actually, no. No, my wide receiver's not Stephon Diggs, though it could be. But my quarterback is definitely Josh Allen. Josh Allen, 24-35 for 417 yards and 4 touchdown passes with no interceptions. Fun fact, Erik, did you know this is the first time in Bills franchise history that a quarterback has gone over 400 yards with 4 or more touchdown passes and no interceptions in a game?
Well, I mean, I know that was something that Jim Kelly touched on a couple times but never really did, and the only other guy who would have been able to come close to those kinds of numbers were Jack Kemp, so not surprised.
Fun fact, Jason, did you know, through 2 weeks, who was the passing yardage leader in the National Football League?
It should be Josh Allen.
It's Josh Allen.
Because I know that Favre didn't meet Favre. Good Lord, I went back in the Aaron Rodgers didn't repeat. He had a really subpar performance.
Aaron Rodgers wasn't even the leading passer in his own game this week. Matthew Stafford had more passing yards than Rodgers did.
Yeah. So, Erik, if you take mine, I'm going to choke you, but I have a backup. So, go ahead and give me your balling quarterback for the week.
See, I've got 2, but I'm going to pick my main one that I had first because A, respect to my friend Kenny Ake. Shout out, Kenny. Hope you feel better soon. And B, because I really didn't see it coming, and I kind of hate to say it, Ryan Tannehill. I mean, this is another one of those situations. We saw what happened last year during that playoff run. We saw what happened mainly, aside from a couple of drives, pedestrian performance against Denver. Now, going into a game against Jacksonville where I'm going to admit, Derrick Henry, please come home. I get the fact that you just signed a big deal. We will make a trade. You wouldn't be too far from Yulee. We get it. You can still make those big runs against the Jaguars, except now you'll be with us, and it would make my life a lot easier. I was expecting that. What does Tannehill do? Up and down the field, hitting like all kinds of wide receivers, fade patterns, everything. I'm gonna double check, but I think he put up almost 400.
No, Tannehill didn't. Tannehill only went for.
I could have sworn it felt like it was more than 239. I knew it was the 4 touchdown passes, but man.
Yeah, 239 and 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's a hell of a respectable. So you didn't go where I thought you was. But this one's going to hurt. So this one's really going to hurt. I might even puke in my mouth a little bit by saying this. But my flat-out balling quarterback is none other. God, I can't believe I want to say this. Mr. 450 yards passing on 34 of 47 attempts, 1 touchdown. With a quarterback rating of 109.4.
I thought about him, but I'm like...
And if anybody knows me, knows how hard this is for me to say, and that's Dak Prescott. I mean, he flat out put up amazing numbers passing. I mean, his touchdowns didn't show it, but I mean, he was slinging the ball all over the floor. And I have to give him credit. He showed some leadership. That game, he put that team on his back and led them to victory. We won't talk about the fact that Atlanta doesn't know how to cover up an onside kick.
Or the fact that
we'll talk about
lead.
Or the fact
we'll
that
talk about both of those facts tomorrow.
or the fact that Julio Jones drops a wide open touchdown in the end zone that bounces off his hands that would have put the game away. We won't talk about that. But yeah, I mean, I'm going straight up. Dak Prescott is my Ballin quarterback this week. I mean, the kid put up 450 yards. I mean, that's good. And I'm going to throw out
to add to it, only 5 carries, only 18 yards, but 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to throw an honorable mention out there, too, which is what was the other one? I mean, the man's having an MVP season. And, you know, you got to throw Russell Wilson out there with 288 and 5 touchdowns. I mean,
to five different receivers like we talked about in the group chat on Sunday night.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's some kind of historical thing. We may need to look into that when we talk tomorrow. But, yeah, I mean, 5 different receivers, 5 touchdowns, 5 different receivers. I mean, that's impressive. And he tacked on 39 yards rushing. So, I mean, that's impressive. But especially how that game started with a tip pick 6. You thought that was going to be really
by one of the McCourty boys.
Yeah, so everybody thought that game was going to be weird. Now, let's flip the script to running back. Who do you got as your balling out running back this week? I swear to God, if you guys take mine, I'm going to punch you in the throats.
Erik,
Mm-hmm.
you made fun of me earlier in the show. I guess there's a little bit of crow to be eaten here.
Here's some garlic pepper.
5 carries for 5 yards last week had him on my hype train. This week, 12 carries for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns puts Leonard Fournette on the Ballin list. And for the record, Mr. Watkins, I filed a waiver claim in order to get him back.
But see, you wouldn't have had to file that waiver claim if you had to just listen to me, because I kept telling you, give him time.
Malcolm Brown got hurt anyway, so it worked out.
See,
Erik,
and for those of you who have, your auction dollars for your waiver claims, again, save yourself a little bit of that money, and you just kept them on your team.
Hey, Erik, who's your Ballin running back?
In an overall, just another solid, impressive performance with a team that put up 40 points again. 18 carries, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Jason's about to throat punch you.
Yeah, you took mine.
See, this is why if you have them, you can mention them first. Like we organize everything and we use a Google Doc sheet for the kickoff, which you'll find out how successful that is tomorrow.
Here on the W2M Network, online at W2Mnet.com. Continue, Erik.
Yeah, not to mention 4 catches for 68 yards and another touchdown. I mean, a little bit understated last week against Minnesota where everybody else had a field day. Going up against Detroit, he's like, no, I'm going to turn this around. I got this, and do a Lambo leap to absolutely nobody.
That was pretty impressive. They had to pull him out of the cardboard cutout stands.
All right, since Erik took mine, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take. Man, I think this is some. I mean, I know I've been feeling sick here recently, and this just confirms it. So I'm going to take my Ballin running back as somebody that was pedestrian last week, but showed up this week and went over the century mark on 16 carries for an average of 6.6 yards for a total of 106 yards, 1 touchdown. And I'm going to take James Conner. I think he had a respectable game. I think it was maybe week 1 rust, getting to him to get him going and stuff. And, with everything going on, maybe that was just like, filling everything out. But yeah, I'm definitely going to go and say Connor was my Ballin running back since Aaron Jones on me.
I got an honorable mention for you guys since we haven't really discussed this game as well. Let's give a shout-out here to Nick Chubb, 124 yards and 2 touchdowns in Cleveland's 35-30 win over Cincinnati on Thursday Night Football last week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he went for 124 on 22 carries and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, that is very impressive. I mean, so all right. So let's move on to our wide receivers. So who do you guys got that balled out in your wide receiver cores?
Give me one quick second to pull up the official stat line here because I want to get it correct, because I can't believe, much the same way that you find yourself giving credit to people that you don't want to give credit to this week, I find myself in a similar situation.
All right. So Eric, while he's pulling that up, if you want to go ahead and go.
I have it ready, Eric, if Eric wants to wait, but it's up to him.
I'll wait. You go right ahead.
All right. So, Mr. Newton had himself a day on Sunday Night Football. 397 passing yards, and then 47 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns. But almost half of those passing yards went to one receiver. And that is a man who has been making Tom Brady look golden for years. My Ballin wide receiver this week is Julian Edelman. 8 catches, 179 yards.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely impressive.
A little over 22 yards a catch there. 22 and a half, I think. Maybe a little less than 22 and a half.
Yeah, it was right around there.
So, yeah, my Ballin wide receiver is Julian Edelman. Eric, who you got?
For someone who, yes, a little bit more understated than their performance last week, I must say that, for starters. However, a milestone moment already, getting more settled into their new digs and in another comfortable win. For the second week in, really for this season, for him, I gotta go DeAndre Hopkins. While not quite the 14 catches for 151 against the Niners, fine. But 8 catches for 68, not bad for, especially in a PPR, but add in his first touchdown as an Arizona Cardinal. Expect him to start finding the end zone much more often with that monkey off his back.
Fun fact, he actually wasn't the leading receiver in that game, though.
Nope, and that's where we're going with my Ballin wide receiver from that same game for the Washington football team, Terry McLaurin. Yeah, Terry McLaurin, who went for 7 of 10 for 125 and a touchdown. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this Washington team is much better than what anybody has given them credit for. And, you know, everybody said that Haskins wasn't going to take that step to the next level, and they was looking for a quarterback to replace him. But, I mean, he's played decent. I mean, he's not been half bad for the first 2 games of the season.
To be fair, Arizona did beat them like a nameless stepchild.
Well, that's true. But, you know, you still got to go out there. And I do have an honorable mention who is not a wide receiver. And
is it a tight end?
Yes, it is.
Is it a Jacksonville Jaguar?
No, it's not.
That's my honorable mention because he's somebody that I'm actually trying to scoop up in fantasy.
Mine is actually probably one of the most underrated tight ends in the NFL due to the team he plays for. But after starting 2-0, I think some people are going to kind of start giving this team a little bit credit because they came out of nowhere. It's the team that on the kickoff that we picked to be last in the division, and that's the Raiders. And Darren Waller, I think that he doesn't get the respect that a lot of people should be giving him, but he is a really consistent tight end. He puts up solid numbers on a weekly basis, and just that repertoire he has with Carr is unreal.
It'll be curious to see if Las Vegas can keep it up these next 2 weeks, given the fact that they come to the AFC East for the next 2 games. Las Vegas plays New England this week and then Buffalo next week.
Not to mention the fact that will these two performances really quiet down the supposed discord or whatever you want to call it between head coach Gruden, which, oh boy, we may be talking about that more tomorrow as well, and Derek Carr, because everything's great when you're 2-0. If they go ahead and with these 2 games take another couple of L's, you gotta start looking carefully.
Yeah, so with that being said, let's move into our final segment of the evening, and that's our bad beats and personal fantasy forecast. That recapping our leagues. So
can I throw one in off the bat here?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I want to know what the hell Sean is thinking with our fantasy drafted team by leaving Stephon Diggs on the bench.
Weren't we going to go ahead and just forcibly hostile take over that to help him out?
Like we should, especially since he's leaving 153 yards and 2 touchdowns on the bench, including a 21-yarder that nobody saw except on replay because apparently nobody pays a power bill in Miami.
Hey, it was raining, there was lightning, and if you watch NFL Red Zone like I do, you got to see that touchdown. So, yeah.
They showed it on replay on the CBS broadcast as well. My point remains, and Spectrum's a bunch of dicks when it comes to the NFL Red Zone app. We'll talk about that right tomorrow because, well, I kind of just gave away my dick of the week for tomorrow night.
All right, so I just switched his lineup for him because,
he forcibly started Stephon Diggs.
I put in Diggs over Hollywood Brown.
How did his fantasy team do last week?
They lost, and
because he left Stephon Diggs on the bench.
They lost. Well, I don't think that Diggs would have made a huge difference. Let's see here, 21 points. So it would only help us out 17 points, and we lost 143-62 to 106-98.
Man, did we get hit by the injury bug on that team or what?
Nope.
Mostert.
Mostert.
But Mostert actually had a good game before he came out, 92 yards and a touch.
Well, you want to know where Mostert was?
Was he on the bench too?
Yes, he was.
Start both of them, and that's a dub. Or at the very least, you always want
that
to
would have been. No, that would have been. 17. So we would have had 17 and 8. 25. So we would have still. We still would have lost.
But at the same time, yes, it would have still been an L points for. Because depending how some league setups are, how many points you score, tiebreaker.
No, that's a good point, Eric. As far as my own personal fantasy team goes, I got to be honest, I kind of took one on the chin this week. But in fairness, I can't be too mad about it because the 2 players that went off in my game. He had Matt Gesicki, the tight end for the Miami Dolphins, and he also had Stephon Diggs starting against me, and I'm not going to root against my own player. Stephon Diggs kicked my ass at the wide receiver position there. I had actually he had Stephon Diggs in the flex position where I started Mark Ingram. Ingram actually had a decent game, but Diggs put up 28.3 points in this league off of 153 yards on 8 catches in the touchdown. My biggest fantasy bust for the week was actually A.J. Green, who only had 5.4 points. 29 receiving yards, 3 catches, and 2 first downs. This is a league that does half a point for a first down.
Okay.
Erik, who was your biggest fantasy disappointment?
Well, in one of my leagues, I'm just going to say right now, I'm in 3 of them. I'm a combined 0-6. Saying that out loud because, yeah, even with this one, I had everything great. But take a look at this. I had Kareem Hunt. I had Julian Owen. I had Odell Beckham, Kenyon Drake, and Nick Chubb. And for IDP, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Quan Alexander, and I had Miles Jack and Malcolm Butler for Tennessee, which is great. But when my tight ends, when I started a tight end spot, Mark Andrews and O.J. Howard at the flex, combined for only 7 points, and the fact that I'm going up against the likes of Alvin Kamara and Ezekiel Elliott and Travis Kelce and Aaron Jones, among others, that one was my worst L. I wound up losing by almost 80 points.
I lost my game by 38 points, 177 to 149.
Well, this is why I'm the guru of fantasy football here at the W2M Network. I lost 1 game total this weekend. 2 of my games, I won my big fantasy league. I won 174.05 to 99.6. In my second highest paying league, I won 208.3 to 130.9.
Jeeves.
The one that I scored 208, I had Aaron Jones, Russell Wilson, Julian Edelman, and Darren Waller. The one that I put up 174, I had Russell Wilson, David Montgomery, McCaffrey before he went out, and a little known tight end that we'll be talking about tomorrow night, and Tyler Higbee. And I had 2 Baltimore Ravens. I had the Ravens defense plus Justin Tucker, both put up 16 points. My lowest scoring, I had 1 person that was under double digits, and that was Darius Slayton for the Giants, who put up 4 points. But everybody else put up either 12 points or more. So
my apologies to Erik, my 4th highest scoring team member this week, Steven Gostkowski.
Now, in my league that I'm defending the W2M Network honor in, I actually won, and we're going to be talking about this real soon when the matchup comes up. I won in the Golden Sports fantasy football pool, and in my $200 league, I pulled off a 184.9 to 177.5 victory. So I had a pretty good week fantasy wise by losing 1 game, and the 1 game that I lost, it was bad. It was, when I tell you guys this score, it was bad. It was 179.2 to 127.
Ooh.
Oof.
He had Mahomes, Drake, Mostert, Beckham, Boyd, McLaren, Ridley. Yeah. I didn't have as good of a week, so we won't even go over that. Hey, I did have Higbee in that league, who put up 28 points, and DJ Moore, who put up 20. So those were my 2 bright spots. But yeah, that was a rough week. So as for everything, we're going to give a preview of Sean's game coming up in week 3. because I'm a dick like that. We are projected to win 107.47 to 106.14. A lot of good matchups.
Until he goes in and edits it last moment and puts Stephon Diggs back on the bench.
No, I don't think he will. I don't even think he pays attention to it, honestly.
According to the chat, he does.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. I'm really wanting to switch Mixon out for Connor, but I don't know if I should. Connor versus Houston or Mixon versus Philadelphia.
Well, Philadelphia's proven they can't stop anybody this year, apparently.
Nope.
And then we have Breeze versus Green Bay or Ryan versus Chicago.
Chicago's defense has been really good so far. Green Bay tends to get into shootouts.
Not to mention the fact that with how Trubisky is doing with that offense, they're not on the field as much, so you have less fatigue later in games.
I'm saying stick with Breeze there over Matty Ice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am too. So, all right, so that just about does it for us. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So, Harry, where can people find you online?
People can find me on Twitter at HEB the Eagle, on Instagram at the same, and then obviously Facebook at Harry Broadhurst. In addition, you can also check me out if you guys are into wrestling by listening to The Reaction over on the Chairshot Radio Network every Monday night at 11:30 when myself and 411 Mania's Tony Acero discuss everything that goes on in the worlds of Raw and SmackDown on a weekly basis. Our most recent episode was just posted last night and has our predictions for Clash of Champions on it.
All right, Eric, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Squid Sportshead. If you want to see nothing really much to live tweet yet, but in the next couple weeks, especially if my sleep schedule remains the same, stay tuned because I have a thankful postseason run that I get to contend with. If you're looking for everything outside of that, you can find me on Facebook, Erik Watkins. Again, Jaguars gear in the recliner, holding a bottle or holding a glass of wine next to the pile of laundry, and nobody's around too much yet, so I will save the vetting process information.
If you want to be vetted, you have to listen to the Kickoff.
Bingo.
Yeah. And as anyone knows, you could find me at Twitter at W2M Chairman. Definitely I just put up a recent fantasy football poll that I can actually, we'll run this by you guys real quick. With my injuries, I'm looking for a running back.
Is this the Kelsey trade that you brought up in the group chat?
No, I trade raped that dude. We won't even talk about how bad I trade raped him. No, this is in my dynasty league where I am like crushed injury wise, and I got Howard and Beretta offered for Van Jefferson and a 2021 fourth round pick. So just curious where you guys fall on that.
I mean, Jordan Howard in and of himself is worth it in Miami so far this year.
I agree, and with now Cooper Kupp starting to get into the fold, and with Robert Woods, especially after his big contract extension, Jefferson, while talented, I don't think will be able to keep up solid numbers in that Rams offense.
You got to think this is a dynasty league, not a redraft league.
Well, with a dynasty league, you've got to understand, yes, he may pay off, but are you willing to wait? Like, if he were to pay off starting next year, okay, I would say keep him. But if they're starting to mix up this personnel and do everything now, I don't really think you're going to see a true emergence of Jefferson until 2022. So how long are you willing to wait?
Jason, let me ask you this question. Of the people on this panel, who would you say knows the most about the Florida Gators?
You?
As the resident Gator fan, there is one word to describe Van Jefferson's performances in Gainesville. Inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm huge on him though. I mean, but with McCaffrey going down, my starting running backs are currently David Montgomery and Boston Scott.
Didn't Montgomery get banged up in the Bears one as well?
And, he got dinged up but came right back in.
Yeah, but again, Chicago just gave a small bag to Tariq Cohen, so
I wasn't aware that Boston Scott was still in the NFL.
Yeah, Boston Scott's actually having a pretty decent year. I mean, he's
this was news to me. I wasn't aware he was still in the NFL.
Yeah, he's let me load it up here. And I'll give you his stat line for the week. So far, he's put up 35 and 19 yards rushing, and 19 and 24 yards passing.
Okay, so he has 54 yards now as a running back, which has him 50th in the NFL. And you're debating rather. Okay, so he's really not worth much of anything. Let's be honest. You were offered Jordan Howard.
Yeah, who's not really done anything in this season except goal line.
Yeah, but Howard gets 6
touchdown.
I'd rather have the 6 points from Howard on the goal line than 5 points in 2 games from Boston Scott. Excuse me, 5.4 points from Boston Scott.
Yeah, well, I mean Howard put up two weeks of 6 points, 6.7 and 6.0.
And what's Boston Scott have total put up in that league so far?
Boston Scott, let me go back to him. 5.9 and 7.05. So they're point-wise, they're about the same.
It's about a push, but Howard's going to get more carries than Boston Scott is probably. And most of Howard's carries are going to come goal line.
So I mean, it's tempting. I mean, I countered with a fourth rounder for Howard alone. See if he bites on it. Don't expect it, but I've got it up on Twitter now at W2M Chairman, so anybody listens to this can go check it out and vote on what you guys think. So, for the chairman of the W2M Network, you can always find us at W2Mnet.com, as well as anywhere of your favorite podcast listening devices, such as Spotify, Podbean, and anywhere else you may enjoy podcasts. With that being said, you guys have a good night, and we'll see you in the future.